today. I mean, her and I have had contrasting views in terms of the importance of Canadian oil and gas sector in terms of overall prosperity, including in her home province, where the revenues of that industry actually help contribute to a lot of the social good, not only in Quebec but in Nova Scotia. But my question to her is actually around Quebec's energy future. Certainly estimates suggest that we have to double our electricity generation across the country. That would also be the case in Quebec as well in terms of that energy future that she talks about. I'm curious on what her view is, Quebec specific, what she would like to see her province do in terms of generating and doubling electricity in her province, whether it's more hydroelectricity, whether or not she's open to the idea of nuclear energy, or where that might fit in terms of what her view is for Quebec so that they can position themselves as a province in the days ahead.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamatis-Matane-Matapédia. Thank you, Madam Speaker. My colleague's question is very interesting. It's the type of things that we decide at the National Assembly in Quebec, but what we're doing here, well, I would ask the federal government to take some inspiration from what we're doing in Quebec. We've been looking at green energy for quite some time and renewable energy, and obviously, like all other countries, we have to move towards this, but I think we can do better. When I hear my colleague talk about some profits helping people in other areas, well, we have to look at all of the harmful effects of climate change, the impact it has on people's health, and people will be paying a higher price in coming years, so we have to watch those type of comments.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Workton Melville.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Just this morning, had a great meeting with the CLC and talked about the issues around just transition. And they were very concerned because right now there's funding to assist people in retraining into a more environmentally friendly job. However, they're very frustrated because the government has indicated you have to quit your existing job before you can get this funding, which of course is counterintuitive to the fact that people need to continue to earn a living in a means available to them while they are seeking these other roles. So I would like her feedback on that. How does she feel about being required to stop your source of income to be able to get funding for training in another area? Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamatis-Matapédia. No doubt, when we do the energy transition, the government has to support workers and industries that will be part of this transition. But the government has to start this transition. Unfortunately, we've seen once again that it's not the case. We're still waiting for the government's plans for future action to fight climate change, and we know that we'll have to really transform our economy in the coming years. But there's still no indications about how we're going to do this. So workers who are concerned and don't know really what's going to happen with their jobs or their industry, well, the government has to show some more transparency and predictability so that it supports these workers in this process, which will obviously be a very serious one. But I think the government could support us also more. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her speech. I'd like to go back to one point that I find very relevant. The fear of Liberals to tackle the profits of big oil. There are many measures for everyday Canadians, but oil companies have doubled their profits and the government continues to give them subsidies. They don't want to tax them more. And the Secretary General of the UN, well, also mentioned this. How come the Liberals are not taxing them, even though it's a rather obvious solution? The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamatis. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I was mentioning that in my speech. My colleague also mentioned a few figures before me when we talked about Canadians and the Energy Office. There was billions in profits made, and Suncor also made ginormous profits, and I'm wondering why the government doesn't want to tax them. What we saw in the past is the government is having a hard time making decisions that are tough. They don't want to go against industries that have enormous pressure on them, and they have a hard time making these decisions because they know no matter what they do, they'll have the support of the NDP. So how come they put themselves in such a tricky situation? they're happy with their agreement with the NDP that will save them in all their decisions, but that's my answer to my colleague's question.
The